China brought 14 different Palestinian factions together in Beijing to agree on the formation of a unity government for the Palestinian territories after the war ends. Political rivals Fatah and Hamas agreed to establish a provisional reconciliation government and a plan for post-war governance in Gaza. The Beijing Declaration officially says the agreement created a barrier against all regional and international interventions that seek to impose realities against our people's interests. The unity government is to oversee the reconstruction of Gaza once a ceasefire is achieved, govern the Palestinian territories, and prepare conditions for elections across the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The establishment of a Palestinian state with a unity government is something that has long been the U.S. agenda in the region. This agreement is another step in that direction. The biggest obstacle to a Palestinian state has for long been the regime in Tel Aviv, who has for long opposed a Palestinian state. The other challenge is China has no practical way to actually achieve the goals of the Beijing Declaration. China lacks the regional presence, power, influence, and capability for the declaration to see the light of day. What China has achieved with this declaration is to be seen as the more balanced power who is seeking to solve regional political problems, who is not prejudiced as the U.S. is with Israel. The British Army has 3 years to prepare for war, according to its new chief, as he announced an ambitious reform program to get the force fighting fit for modern warfare. General Sir Rowley Walker said there was an urgent need to modernize the British Army because of the converging geopolitical threats of Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. Walker said Russia would emerge from the war in Ukraine very dangerous and be seeking revenge, however the conflict might eventually end. The lesson from history is the Russians don't forget, and they will come back, wanting retribution for the support that was given to Ukraine. Walker's sober assessment of the threats facing Western countries comes as the UK's new government launched a review of the British military before committing to increasing defense spending. The UK Army chief now becomes the latest in a long line of officials who see Russia's success in Ukraine needing a continental-wide war to halt its expansion. The British chief is now just the latest official effectively declaring the preparation for World War III. Egypt is raising fuel prices for the second time in 4 months in order to fulfill an economic reform condition set by the International Monetary Fund to unlock hundreds of millions in new loans. As part of its IMF bailout deal, Egypt agreed to gradually slash fuel subsidies, which take up a chunk of its cash-strapped budget. The move comes as Egypt battles its worst economic crisis in more than a decade, with ballooning foreign debt driving up inflation and causing several consecutive devaluations of the local currency. The dictatorial military regime continues to throw money at vanity projects, including a new capital city, as the people suffer from economic chaos. The IMF has demanded Egypt implement wide-ranging reforms to reset its economy, including shifting to a liberal exchange regime, reducing government spending, and incentivizing private investment. Egypt is today in a worse position than the eve of the Arab Spring. It was the economy that drove many to the streets, and it would seem it's just a matter of time before the people will be on the streets again.